clients prefer AI results, what happens to traditional designers?
Yeah, so if clients prefer AI results, what happens to traditional designers? So unfortunately, as I just said on the previous question, this is kind of already starting to happen. You know, clients, they don't necessarily care where the idea comes from, or what was the process. They just want to see the end result. So traditional design doesn't necessarily go away, but when something works and when something is convincing to another person, you can't ignore the fact that that works. You have to keep moving in that direction. So design becomes more of an internal thing. You're not really showing your inner workings to outside people. You're keeping those internal, and you're only showing those finished results. You don't necessarily show your true working as we used to. Before, we used to show initial sketches, renderings, final renderings, and that was our process. But these days, we kind of almost do away with that initial part and just go straight to the final thing, because we already said, okay, that's for us. They don't need to see this, and we will showcase the final result at the end. That's all they need to see. Because before, that process was so slow. We didn't have the final part in the beginning. We had to show the beginning, the middle, the end. But now we can do the middle, beginning and middle for ourselves, and just show the end straight away. So yeah, so basically, there's a lot of work that goes into it. I don't diminish the work of a designer, of course. There's still a lot of thinking, internal kind of struggle of designers to understand what is good, what is bad, what do you want to do. But as I said, it's just like, the fact that, maybe designers in the 80s and the early 90s, when they were so set on their, the markers, the pastels, there's, doing full size drawings, this kind of stuff. It was the medium at the time that was needed to convince. Those are the things that were needed to be done. Everything is of its time to basically, and as I said, and it's the same when I started. We had, Photoshop was before me, of course. It was still being used, but it was becoming very mainstream by the time I started. But, I did start off with pens, pencils, markers and stuff. But it quickly became apparent that those things weren't really needed anymore. And you had to jump onto Photoshop. If you didn't, you almost were gone. You would die without it. So it's just a necessity to move with the times, basically. But you can still keep your core skills internal and maybe for yourself. So I think AI is the next big shake-up compared to what Photoshop and maybe Alias did to the industry. Back in like the early 2000s. That was probably the last huge shake-up. So AI is doing the same thing. It's really shaking up the whole industry, and for me, I think it's a good thing. But it's this. As I said, there's still a lot of people on the edge, but that's what today's about, to convince people that it's something that needs to move with the times, and it'll all be good in the end, basically. So car design medium is shaking up, and it's about moving with the times. And I said, clients prefer to see what they can understand. They want to see the product. They want to see it in an environment, because that's where they see cars. They don't understand a clay model in clay. They don't understand a car covered in Dynoc. They're like, well, where's the glass? Where's the lamps? Where's this? Where's that? They don't understand this. They want to see something realistic. So when they can see that, they feel happier. Obviously, we're not just doing this for clients. We still have to be internally happy. But if you're internally happy and you can show the final product, it makes sure everyone's happy, basically. As I said, it's hard to.
That's the real world, isn't it? So
yeah, exactly. So I think it's not just our industry that's doing this. It's hard to ignore what AI can offer. In the end, the products we make they are for ourselves because we put so much passion into them. But in the end, they are products to be sold to the client in the company or the project team, but also to the wider world of the people buying these vehicles with their hard-earned money, basically. So if you can show an inefficient way to the client, to the people, they really will appreciate it, because it makes them feel happy to know what they're seeing, basically. Because before was very ambiguous. Like, this is a very crazy sketch with 40-inch wheels and, really extreme proportion. They were like, well, I don't know what I'm really looking at, but it looks cool, so I'm going to trust you. It was kind of like that.
And you said it's cool, so it must be cool.
It's cool. So. And sometimes in the end, it was a bit of a letdown, because you're like, well, actually, after package constraints, and it became very watered down. Whereas now it's kind of like, we still cheat the AI images, of course. We still want to make them look sexy and this kind of thing, but it's a more realist sexy, not a far-flung sexy, this kind of thing. So yeah.
Cool.